Okay, now once we get to this stage in our exporting, we are able to choose our format type. I'll just talk you through what we see here with this user interface. On the left hand side, you are going to see a view of where your CTI is placed at the moment of your completed sequence. Well, certainly the sequence that we've just sent over here. This orange horizontal strip running across here, down towards the bottom, this is the same as your timeline in terms of you can move your CTI to a different position so that you can see a frame snapshot of that particular point within your sequence. I'll show you this in a second, but do notice first of all, right down at the bottom, you've got an option next to where it says source range. You've got an option there to choose what exactly you do see displayed along here. And again at this screen resolution, for the size that we create these movies for you, you can't quite see everything, but there are 3 or 4 options that you can choose from. And textually, to be quite honest with you, they inform you exactly what they do. For example, with a top option, I'll choose this one, I get to see the entire sequence within our preview view. So, as I alluded to a moment ago, wherever you place your CTI along this horizontal line, that will immediately take you to that point as if you were working on the timeline back in Premiere Pro. And of course, because we've got numerous clips involved, then we will be jumping from one clip to another in the sequence order that you brought them in. Now, right at the top left, you might notice we've got 2 tabs. At the moment, we're looking at input. Hence, we are looking at what our sequence looks like as it comes straight out of Premiere Pro into here. But if you want a slightly different view, if you want to see what the output will look like, well, of course, clearly choose that second tab, Output. And related to this is this source scaling option. Now, in our example, this isn't going to make any difference. Whatever we choose from these 3 options, we've got scale to fit, we've got scale to fill, and we've got stretch to fill. Now, in our case, this is always going to look the same because our project settings are identical to our output setting. But if you've brought in some mismatched clips, in terms of size, then clearly choosing one of these options will allow you to be able to see what the output will look like, dependent on whether you choose scale to fit, scale to fill, or stretch to fill. Okay, now moving to the right, we see this main textual area with all these different options. Right at the top, we've got export settings. And related to what I've just spoken about, if you want your export settings to match exactly what your sequence settings are, then of course you would click in this checkbox. As soon as you do though, notice that quite a number of these different options get taken away from you. And that's only because you don't need them, because we've now just chosen Match Sequence Settings. Now I'm going to uncheck that, simply because I want to show you some of these other options that are only available if we do want to adapt what our project settings will look like in terms of our output. You can choose your format at the top. By default at the moment it's set to H.264, but notice if you click here, then you've got quite a number of different possibilities, ranging from AVI or an AVI uncompressed, that will be a large file, or you can have FLV, JPEGs if you prefer, if you just want still images, or you can see also that there are some audio options too, MP3 and Windows Audio, i.e. WAV files, and a number of different MPEG formats too. So you'll need to determine which particular type of format that you want for your project's end result in terms of what you're going to be doing with it. You might be sending to DVD, Blu-ray, you might be sending to YouTube, you might even be simply sending this sequence out to an AVI file so that you can subsequently import it into Adobe's After Effects. Anyway, you decide. For our example, I'll leave it at H.264. Also notice just underneath, even though we've chosen our format, because H.264 is quite popular across a wide range of different types of output, then clicking on Preset here, changing it from custom, allows you to choose presets for Android phones, iPhones, iPads, etc, etc. I'll leave it set to custom, and I suppose at this point you might be thinking, well, I'm happy with all these settings, therefore I need to choose a name. Well, by default the output name takes on your Premiere Pro sequence name, but you could of course change it should you want to. I'll leave it at Anglesey. Also, with this output name, if you did click on there, I'm not going to, but if you did, then that would allow you to navigate and choose the folder where you want the resulting file to be saved. Okay, now that's about it really. Of course you can choose to export your video and export your audio embedded in with it, which is more than likely what you want to do. However, you might not. You might just want the video, in which case you would uncheck the export audio, or vice versa, if you only want the audio rather than the video. And you can see down here linked that there are tab settings for video and audio. Now again, once more, we're going to leave these at the defaults. And then I suppose right down at the bottom, these checkbox options are quite important to you. Or certainly they are very useful. I've got all but one checked at the moment by default, and textually they pretty much indicate what they do. However, if you want more detail, rolling over any of these will throw open a pop-up that tells you exactly what having this checkbox will do if you decide to include it. Okay, now very finally, you'll see 4 buttons across the bottom here. Metadata, click on here if you want to add or remove any metadata from the finished rendered sequence. I'll leave it, so I'll click cancel. You'll notice next to that there is a queue button. You might want to add this to a queue if you've got quite a number of different sequences that will take on exactly the same format with the same preset, and you simply want to add it to a queue so you can batch process it whilst you nip out to the shops, make yourself a coffee or whatever. And that's something to bear in mind because the rendering out process can take quite some time. Maybe not so long with our short sequence of only a few clips, but if you've got a considerably long project, then it can take quite a while. And if you double this up or triple it up or whatever with multiple sequences, then adding to the queue and then subsequently exporting really can save you some time in terms of you can go off and do something else. Anyway, once you are happy with what you are doing, you would simply click on export. Okay, and that's it really. Now I'm not going to really for this example, so I would simply hit cancel. Okay, but that is the process when you want to export and choose a different format type or retain the format type that is set here by default if you choose to match the sequence settings.